Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Rocket Fuel, where we are talking to Langers, who is the general manager of the Rocket Pool protocol. Langers has been involved in Rocket Pool since the beginning, and of course, we're here talking about Saturn today, with the launch being really close. So we're going to catch up with Langers, what he's been up to over the last few years, what Rocket Pool's been working on. We're going to talk about Saturn, and then we're going to end the episode with talking about what's coming after Saturn and Saturn 2 and onwards from there. So let's get straight into it.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6.
Hi Langers, it's so great to have you back for another episode of Launchpad. Well, kind of Launchpad, kind of not Launchpad. How are things with you?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been a little while because between conferences and that, so I haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah,
So
so
it's good to catch up.
the last time we recorded one of these was for Atlas, which was like the last big upgrade from Rocket Pool. And Atlas, for those who don't remember, was when we went from 16 ETH validators down to 8 ETH validators. There was a couple of little things that were added to that, but that was the main thing. This time we're here to talk about Saturn, which is coming up. So Atlas was what, 3 years ago? Is that right?
Yeah. And then we've had 2 releases since it. Well, actually, technically 3 releases as between there. So we had after Atlas, we have Houston. Yeah, Houston,
Uh-huh.
which was a lot to do with like the protocol DAO governance and a few other bits and pieces with that. Then we had Saturn 0, which I think you had Kane on for, and then now we're at Saturn 1, which is really good. I mean, the whole Saturn sort of program of work has been a monumental thing. But yeah, so it's really good to kind of be talking about it now.
So we've talked a few times because we're on like these calls that we have and community calls and all this kind of stuff. But for those people who haven't talked to you in the last couple of years, what have you been up to? Like, what's been going on in your world?
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of building away, and we've been building away and setting up some relationships as well as we go through. Things that in the staking space have been changing a lot. So I think since Atlas, pretty much, about around Atlas and then beyond, things really have changed. The regulatory landscape has changed quite a lot. The sorts of people that we're talking to has changed, a great deal as well. So, it's not just crypto natives, although, a lot of our sort of stake is crypto natives, but it's talking to institutions and treasuries and all this sort of thing. So it's a very different landscape than it was when we did Atlas. Obviously we've been kind of heads down, working with the DAO, cementing that kind of like relationship, and both of us and the DAO kind of like figuring out how we're working together. But I think it's been extremely fruitful in terms of that managing that relationship and getting the best out of each other. So yeah, I think it's been a good few years. We've been kind of prioritizing the right things. Saturn has been delivering the right things as well. So I think it's been a very fruitful sort of few years.
Yeah, and you've had a busy few years in terms of like traveling and going to conferences and stuff as well, right? Like, what were some of the highlights there?
Yeah, it's always funny because when I speak to people, that they always ask me, because they know that I go to conferences in weird and wonderful places. Not weird places, wonderful places, I should just say. Far flung places. So yeah, I mean, we've been to like DevCon in Bogota and Buenos Aires recently, and then obviously we've been to Denver a few times as well,
Turkey.
and Turkey, yeah, Istanbul as well. Yeah, Singapore, and Singapore was a local event for us. If it's less than 14 hours, it's the local flight for us. But yeah, so that the conferences have been amazing, and it's fantastic. I mean, when we go to these events, we have kind of like things we want to achieve. And that's mainly around the partners that we want to connect with and things we want to talk about. But a major part of it is getting together with the community. So that's been really good. That's probably the most fun part of the trips. The jet lag's not so great, but but definitely getting together with the community and riffing with those guys is really good. But yeah, as I said, it's really good to meet up with partners and to cement those relationships and get those kind of things going as well.
Yeah, one of the big partnerships that came up last year was the Rock Solid Vault, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
how did that happen from your side? Like, getting the team to kind of like not officially brand it, but like integrating on the website and stuff. Like, that's the biggest level of integration we've seen with any DeFi product. Like, what was the path to getting Rock Solid launched and the relationship that you guys had with them?
Yeah, so it was quite a long running kind of process, really. So and Steve and Ben have been big community members for a while, and they wanted to do something in Rocket Pool and kind of like help drive Rocket Pool forward as well. And I think you know that they've got like a startup background, and so they this is something that we could do. They pitched kind of like some ideas, and at the time I think we kind of settled on an idea, but then changed it. Essentially, I think around like Saturn Zero, when Saturn Zero happened, effectively we flipped from being node operator bound to being RETH demand bound. So then there was a massive opportunity to step in there and help with RETH demand. And so they grabbed it with both hands, and they're very capable in terms of building a startup and working through there. So that they did an amazing job, and they've kind of created this Vault product which helps to essentially give additional yield to RETH holders where they invest it in DeFi strategies. It's kind of like a one-click a DeFi Vault. So that way that you don't have to worry about the underlying DeFi strategies yourself, and you can put it into the Vault, and then they'll kind of like manage those strategies for you. They have like a strategy manager called Chudipa, and who actually do all that kind of like management in the background. So yeah, so that's been a fantastic thing. I think the main thing for us was to make sure that we obviously saw the huge demand that we need for RE demand, and so with the expansion in our capacity on the supply side, so we wanted to support them as much as possible, and so that's where the kind of deep integration came into in terms of into the website and that sort of thing.
Great. That's so great. Let's talk about Saturn Zero. You mentioned it there. So
Mm-hmm.
Saturn Zero went live just about 16, 17 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
in October, I think, of 2024. What's been going on with Saturn since then? Because at that time, we thought Saturn would be here basically about a year ago. Like,
Mm.
so how
Yeah.
things been going with Saturn? What's been going on with that?
Yeah. I mean, so the whole Saturn program is a co-developed program with us and the DAO. And within the DAO, there are a lot of, I say, research types. And they've kind of helped to kind of craft, first of all, it was actually like Saturn 1 was kind of like the first thing. But what actually happened was I think a few of the research types managed to come up with a Saturn Zero, which would be easier to deliver in a short space of time. And so that so Saturn Zero, that's how Saturn Zero kind of happened. And the goal of Saturn Zero was to basically expand our supply side to meet the RETH demand, and by kind of like making RPL an optional collateral rather than the mandatory collateral, but have it as basically a fee booster. So you can use it as uh, you can deposit RPL, and then it would boost your commission. And so that's kind of Saturn Zero. In terms of like timelines and that sort of thing, it's definitely tricky. So software kind of delivery is hard in the first place when you've got something like this, which I'm not underselling it when I say that, or not overselling it when I say that Saturn 1 touches every single part of Rocket Pool. Right? There is, I think that apart from changing your time zone as a node operator, I think that's probably the only thing that it doesn't touch. So it is a very big undertaking. And so there was, with Saturn 1, there was a lot of, initially there was a lot of kind of like community research, analysis, and all of that sort of stuff. Then obviously we went into the development part of it, where we've been kind of like developing it. Yeah, and things like the things that take a lot of time. So the development of it takes a fair amount of time because you have to be very, I want to say, comprehensive, robust. You have to go through and make sure that everything is correct. The other elements are the auditing. So auditing takes a long time, basically, and in a sense, we try to make the auditing process as streamlined as possible, but we then realized that actually the audit process cannot be streamlined, or at least it's not good, but it's essentially can't be streamlined. So we've kind of like realized that, but we tried to streamline it as much as possible, but it is something that takes a very long time. So I think the audits have gone through. I think the total, we spent a lot of money on audits, a lot of money on audits. The audit teams have spent, I think, a total of maybe 22 weeks of audit time
Wow.
auditing
Yeah.
the code. So it's not something, and it's not something that you can kind of say hurry up, because you want them to do the best job possible. So, and I think they definitely have. So we had 3 auditors, actually technically 4 auditors, which we'll kind of like come into probably in the next few days. But I'd say the 3 main auditors were Sigma Prime, Baosec, and Cantina. And they each came at from a very different angle, which I think has worked really well in terms of coverage. And they're all top shelf auditors. So there's a lot of the reason why also the audit process takes a long time is because they discover things, then we fix them. They check to make sure it's fixed. Then there's kind of like probably several rounds of that to make sure that everything is absolutely finished. Yeah, so that's a process you don't want to necessarily rush. But we are here now after a very, very long process. We are at the point of kind of like delivering this thing, and it's been I think 6 DevNets delivering the kind of like features incrementally, 6 DevNets, and now we're on testnet. The community are absolutely hammering the testnet. They really love the multi-deposit feature with the Hoodie ETH. They're going ham on the Hoodie ETH. So so it's, that's been really good. The testnet's been really good as well. And we're getting lots of engagement around that. So that's always really useful when the community get involved in that. And so, we're at the point where, a lot of this it's basically putting the finishing touches on the refinements, and then it's kind of like locking it into the governance process. So the next thing for us, Sigma are just finishing their last audit report, at least like the fix checks, just making sure that it's a complete report. We'll put that on the website. We'll flip over the bug bounty program. That was one thing that needs to do around the bug bounty program, and then raise it with the ODAL, or deploy the upgrade, raise it with the ODAL, and all that sort of thing. So so there's not a lot of steps left now, which is really exciting, and I can't wait to kind of like get it out, because it's been a very, very long time coming, but the benefits are going to be massive for Rocket Pool.
Absolutely. I want to take a tiny step back before we take a huge leap forward. You mentioned that there were six DevNets in testing Saturn 1. Why did you guys change the testing system before you just have the whole thing on the testnet? Like, how come you approached it this way this time?
I think because, so Saturn 1 is, as I said before, it touches everything in Rocket Pool. It is a monumental release. Like it's effectively Rocket Pool V2, and the scope was quite large. And so the reason why we broke it up into multiple DevNets was to so that we didn't have like a humongous testing effort and right at the end. So the idea was to deliver these DevNets and do test each block of scope, and then we kind of retest it as we go as well. But a lot of the testing gets up front, and it's manageable. And also, not only that, because we are working with the DAO and the community, we want to make sure that we are showing that we're progressing as we go. And so we felt it really important to have deliverables that people were tangible and that people could play around with and use, as well as what we didn't really want was us basically going away for a long period of time and then coming back eventually. So we wanted to make sure that communication was, and those deliverables were delivered on a regular basis.
Amazing. Okay, so you said that there's only a couple of things left, and then we'll be ready for the upgrade. When is the upgrade happening for those who might not know?
Yeah. So the upgrade is scheduled for the 18th of February, which is it's the 18th our time because we live in the future. So I think it's kind of like the 18th of a lot of other people's kind of day. But yeah, so it's going to be on the 18th. So we've got to deploy the contracts. We've got to go through like a verification process, which is essentially we deploy this like little open source verification tool, and people can verify that the contracts that have been deployed match what's in source control, what's in GitHub basically. And then we can raise the ODL proposal. And then there's like a 7-day delay for the ODL proposals. And that's really for everyone to kind of like digest that this is coming and point out any issues. And then after that delay period, the ODL can then start voting. We will make sure that the ODL are aware of when they can start voting, so that they can do it in a quickly as quickly as possible. And then so that should kind of like finish basically on the 18th or just before. Then there's one last step, and that last step is for us to actually, once the proposal has been voted on and it succeeds, then it gets executed. Then we just execute the upgrade when we want to, and that'll be, I think it's basically 10 o'clock our time, so it's midnight UTC. So yeah, we'll execute that, and then it's just a case of monitoring, making sure everything's working properly. Oh, I think there's a live stream actually. I think Matt's coordinated a live stream with ETHStaker. So yeah, that should be really good as well. And there's some other media that's coming in the meantime as well.
That's so exciting. Okay, so let's actually talk about Saturn now, where I think we've been talking about it for quite a while.
I know the build up.
So Saturn 1, as the name says, this is a sequence. We had Saturn 0, now we have Saturn 1, and at some point in the future, we're going to have Saturn 2, which we'll talk about later. But Saturn 1, the big thing that it introduces, we'll start with, of course, there's many things. Like you said, the whole protocol is changing. It's pretty much like Rocket Pool 2.0, but we get something called megapools now instead of mini pools. What is a megapool, Langus?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's bigger than a mini pool.
Name starts a gigapool to begin with or something?
Yeah, there's going to be a gigapool because there are a few different names. I think megapool is the least offensive. So with the mini pool, let's describe what a mini pool is. An individual smart contract that gets, so every time a node operator deposits ETH into via Rocket Pool, they obviously deposit their node bond, and then it's matched with ETH from liquid stakers. And in the mini pool architecture, you've got every validator is an individual smart contract, which back in the day, that was the only way to do it. That was kind of that was basically the only way to do it. Mainly because of just the from an accounting perspective, it was the only way to do it. But the problem with mini pools is that you have to interact with each individual smart contract. So a gas costs a fair amount of gas. It's not as convenient. But not only that, but your bond is kind of like siloed across all of these individual pools. And so those combinations, the combination of kind of like the maintainability or gas costs of it, and the fact that your bond is siloed, meant that going from 8 ETH validators to 4 ETH validators wasn't really possible. So what we did was megapools actually enable us to reduce that bond requirement. So at a high level, I should probably just say that. So with Saturn, there are a number of goals. The first goal is to take our kind of capital efficiency to the next level. So what it does is it reduces the bond requirement for node operators in a kind of a safe way. kind of like doing it. And it also sets the stage for kind of changing it further down the track. But it increases our capital efficiency. So basically, even with the node operators that we have today, we could take on a huge amount of RETH demand. So that really does set us up for the future, a future where not only crypto native, but also institutions and companies all stake their ETH. So we're really kind of like setting ourselves up for the next phase of the cycle, and that's what we're doing with the capital efficiency improvements. The other thing that it brings is it brings the withdrawal liquidity benefits. So there's an element in there which, so at the moment, all the rewards that come back and exits of a node operator, they end up in this withdrawal liquidity bucket to support withdrawals. But what comes in Saturn is also when people deposit into the protocol, currently it goes into growth. Basically, it goes to fulfilling node operator deposits. But with going forward, it'll actually go into the withdrawal liquidity first until we hit like a threshold, and then it will go into the gives a lot more certainty for withdrawals. But it also means that our the RETH, it makes the RETH peg more robust and that to market conditions and all that sort of thing. So that's a big win for RETH holders. A few other things. So there's a few other things around just making Rocket Pool more, say, dynamic. Dynamic's not the right word, but being able to adjust to market conditions. So there's this thing called universal
Adjustable revenue step.
adjustable revenue share. That's it. Thank you. Essentially, what that means is that the DAO can control the node operator commission and essentially the node. I won't say make it simple for now, but the node operator commission and the RETH commission that RETH holders pay. So what it means is that we can adjust that over time to be competitive within the market and to be able to compete with a lot of other providers in the space. So that's a massive thing for us as well, because currently we struggle to do that because we don't have this universal system, but Saturn will enable us to do that going forward. So that's a massive thing as well. And the other big line heading thing is the is essentially voter share, which we're calling voter share, but it's just Mav's calling the RPL fee switch, which is much better. So the RPL fee switch is essentially, so RPL at the moment, as I said, is kind of like this fee boost thing. We're actually kind of like removing that fee boost thing in favor of megapools. So if you kind of came in under Saturn 0, megapools are going to be much better for you. But with this, what actually happens is, so a percentage of the fee that RETH holders pay will actually go into like a pool of funds, and then that will be distributed amongst the RPL staking node operators within the megapool system, within the Saturn system. So in that way, what's actually happening is the RPL staking node operators are actually getting a share of the revenue from the protocol. So why this is really important. So this was a big thing. So the community did a tokenomics review, RPL, to really dial in on what is going to mean that RPL will have the same trajectory as Rocket Pool, in the sense that we're a successful protocol. It really should be benefiting from the success of the protocol, and what is going to do that. What this does is it has like a very direct relationship between Rocket Pool's success and the RPL token itself, because the more people stake with Rocket Pool, the more revenue goes to RPL staking node operators. So that's a massive thing for RPL, and so we're really excited. We're really excited on all fronts. There are a bunch of other changes as well, but they're kind of like more node operator based, but they're kind of like the headline things.
Yeah. So let's go through those one by one. You did a great job
definitely
summarizing them all. So you said that the megapools are going to introduce gas efficiencies. It also makes it better for the node operator, right? So when you do one transaction now, instead of calling, 10 different validated contracts to, for example, get your rewards, you just make one call and it's going to make it so much cheaper for you. That's great. The other thing is, you'll have a mega pool based collateral. So your ETH, if it gets slashed, you can get punished at the mega pool level across all your validators instead of each validator one at a time. So the benefit of that as well then is, or if you do, some kind of bad stuff that you're not supposed to be doing, you can get punished as a collective, and that means that we can then reduce the collateral per validator
That's
down
right.
to 4 ETH, which is awesome to see as well. Uh, with the 4 ETH, what happens is that the amount of lift we can have with our ETH, like you mentioned, goes up like hugely. So, for example, with original mini pools, you had 16 ETH, and the node operator 16 ETH could lift 16 ETH from the protocol. So it was 1-to-1, right? And then with Atlas, it became, 1-to-3. Is that right? Yeah, 1 ETH. Yeah, 28. So 8 ETH from node operator was, 24 ETH from the protocol. And what that did then is if you had 16 ETH, then it became 56 ETH that you could do with the same amount. Now what we get is, with that same 16 ETH, you can get 112 ETH, I think, from the protocol. So it just makes it so much more efficient. There's a really interesting thing that happens there, right? Is because the node operator who's getting the rewards, before you just got the commission from 16 ETH worth of our ETH commission. And then with Atlas, you got it from so much more. Now you're getting so much more. So the rewards that come to the node operator are actually going to go up a lot if it just went all to the node operator. But what we realized as a community was that it's going to be juicing the rewards for the node operator too much, right? Which is where this very revenue split idea came from. So there's 3 components to the revenue split. There's the share that goes to the ETH stakers, and then there's the one that will go to the RPL stakers, and then we can also change how much commission we're actually earning from our ETH holders, right? So what's really interesting about this is we can tweak the protocol to adjust for what we need more of. So, for example, if we need more node operators, then what we could do is increase the rewards that go to the node operators. We could either charge more RETH commission or give a little bit less money to RPL stakers to boost node operator rewards to get more node operators in line. If we want more RPL staked, for governance purposes or just because we want more RPL staked, then we can increase that voter share at the cost of node operator share or by increasing our ETH commission. And then one thing that's really interesting is that we can dynamically adjust the ETH commission as well. So we could, reduce that significantly if we wanted. If we really need more ETH to be minted, we could slash it in half or whatever, really drastic measure, just so then the ETH commission gets more competitive with other staking providers. So all of those things together, I think, makes a really great set of upgrades that are, like you said, going to make this Rocket Pool 2.0. We did a really good job of covering the main stuff there. So that's awesome. Let's talk about some of the smaller stuff. So there's delegate upgrades that are happening as well. Like what's the purpose of that?
Yeah, so with the way that the current system works, you have kind of like these opt-in upgrades, and opt-in upgrades are kind of they are important for node operators to make sure that they they know that the contract that they're upgrading to has a little bit of a Lindy effect and all that sort of thing. But the problem is that it's open-ended. And so from a maintenance perspective, that's definitely hard. And it means that we can't roll out things protocol wide as easily. So what we've done with the delegate upgrades is basically there's like a delay. So you essentially get, I think it's like 4 months to upgrade. And then if you don't upgrade after that, then it essentially gets auto upgraded. So that gives people an opportunity to make sure that the megapool contract they're moving to is good, but also if they wanted to exit for any reason, then they could do. It gives them kind of like time to do that, or they just roll on to the next delegate when it gets upgraded. And so they get all the new features and that sort of thing. Most of the time we try to add as many good features that people want to upgrade as soon as possible, but this gives us definitely from a protocol maintenance perspective, this is a much better situation.
Absolutely. And what kind of protections then are there for people with upgrades coming with like upgrade guardrails and things like that? Are there any things in place there?
Yeah, so in actual fact, there is with the upgrades going forward. So after this one, after Saturn 1, the ODAO would vote in an upgrade. It goes through that 7-day process, and then after that, the ODAO vote and it goes through. But then there's actually going to be like another 7-day kind of like block, which is for the Security Council who are voted in by the protocol DAO. The protocol DAO have control of who is on the Security Council. They have that amount of time to essentially veto the upgrade. So what that essentially means is that the ODAO are kind of like they are a trusted group, 12 members. Yeah, 12 members. Yep. 11 members of kind of very well-known Ethereum companies. The team is also on that as well. And so there's definitely social leverage over them, but it's not completely, they are trusted up to a certain point. So what with this situation, it means that it kind of requires a two houses. Yeah,
Yep.
both to kind of like do it. So because obviously upgrades are pretty important. So very important. So that's definitely in there as well.
Nice. And then say I've got mini pools now. What do I do? Like, would I just, once the upgrade goes live, do I need to do anything? Like, what happens if I want to go to megapools?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we'll put out like a Medium article. We've got a Medium article that's in final draft at the moment, which we'll put out very soon, hopefully next week. What you do as a mini pool. So mini pools and mega pools are separate. Okay, so to take advantage of megapools, you have to kind of like exit and come back in again. Now, what would be best is that you wait until after Saturn happens, and the reason for that is that there's an express queue ticket provisioning system. So once Saturn goes live, you'll be issued with these express tickets that will enable you to kind of like migrate your mini pools over to mega pools. Those express tickets, what they do, so essentially with Rocket Pool going forward in Saturn, there's 2 queues. There's an express queue and a standard queue. The express queue kind of goes 4 times faster than the standard queue. So new people coming to Rocket Pool will get processed, but the preference obviously will be people migrating their mini pools to mega pools. And so yeah, so that's kind of like how that works. But yeah, you will need to exit and come back in again. It's the same with RPL. RPL staking with mini pools is now going to be called like legacy. So when you exit your mini pools, you'll then be able to exit your RPL and then or unstake your RPL, and then you'll be able to come back in again with mega pools. And when you stake it, after Saturn 1, staking RPL in mini pools is disabled. So you'll only be able to stake it with mega pools. So yeah, you can unstake your mini pools, unstake your RPL, then come back in with mega pools.
Awesome. And why should people switch? So there's the gas efficiencies, but what
Yep.
changes are happening for rewards for node operators?
Yeah, that's a good point. So effectively, you'll earn more as a node operator with mega pools. So the commissions are such that most people will actually earn more moving from mini pools to mega pools. The other thing is that there's 2 kind of like things that don't happen immediately, but they will be happening very soon. So the first thing is if you are like a Saturn 0 depositor, in other words, that you deposited, I will have it in the Medium article, but if you deposit after a certain date, then you're basically one of these Saturn 0 node operators. So you probably have like a base commission of 5%, and then you have this like boosted commission up to 10%. And then if you staked RPL, you get like an additional 4% commission, right? So you get a maximum of 14%. So if you're on that kind of model, that bonus commission it will be removed at some point. I think it's 5 reward intervals or something like 6 reward intervals after the launch of Saturn 1. So about 5 to 6 months. And then the bonus commission will go. So in other words, you'll go from like 10 or 14% to 5% back down to your base commission. So that will definitely be an incentive for those people to migrate over to megapools, because you'll be earning considerably more with that. The other, and I should say that was all part of the Saturn Zero thing, and that was communicated in the whole process that was coming. The other thing that will happen is with RPL inflation. So obviously one of the key things is that, so at the moment, RPL staking node operators receive RPL rewards. And so 70% of all the inflation that gets produced for RPL, which is 5% per year, that goes to node operators as like a reward for staking their RPL. Now that's going to be changing again, probably within the same sort of time period, like 5 to 6 months. The idea is that the inflation will actually drop from 5% to probably 2%. The number, well, technically it's 1.5%. Don't know whether there's been discussion of not taking it down that far, but essentially the RPL that would have gone to node operators will no longer go to node operators. So you won't get RPL rewards anymore, but the RPL inflation will be coming down. So even though node operators will be losing out on the rewards, they'll be making up for it as well with the inflation drop. But the reason why that's happening is that the role of RPL is within Saturn now, and if you're staking RPL within Saturn, you get this a fee switch revenue share, and that is in ETH, not RPL. So a key thing there is it enables us to reduce the RPL inflation so that RPL becomes a much better asset just generally, because it doesn't have that kind of quite high inflation of 5%. Although I'd argue that compared to other tokens, 5% was actually quite constrained. So, but we're reducing it down to 1.5 or 2% or whatever it end up being. That becomes a much better asset to hold and to LP, for example. So, a big issue with RPL today, as of today, is that because it has a 5% inflation rate, if you LP it, you have to be kind of earning up to 5% to offset the inflation. Whereas with this, you need far less to offset the inflation. So it becomes a much more viable DeFi asset in terms of that. But also, if you're staking it within the protocol, then you'll get this revenue share, which could be a lot more than that, a lot more than what you would have done before. So there are a number of factors that control how much people would get by staking RPL within the protocol. So there's our megapool TVL is the big part of that, but also how much RPL gets staked as well, and because it's a proportional share across everyone who's staking. But that has the potential to be very good for node operators.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to put some numbers on it, and of course, as we've discussed, these numbers can change because this will be adjustable revenue split. But the numbers as they stand right now is something like, if you have solo staking rate, which is X, then being a ETH only node operator in Saturn 1 will give you around 1.3x as the numbers the community has set right now. And then if you stake RPL, of course, there's big differences because of how much RPL you stake and how much is going to the voter share. So these numbers definitely, take them as just as a kind of rough idea. But at the moment, the way things stand, it might be somewhere like X. So you get 1.3x added onto that solo staking rate as an ETH staker, and then another 0.3 added on as an RPL staker as well. So that's a really nice boost, compared to the rewards that you get right now. As I said, that those numbers are subject to change. Please be aware of what's the discussions that are happening in the community and in governance about changing those. But the idea is that it'll be really attractive for node operators and definitely for RPL stakers there.
Yeah, and there's some calculators on how to calculate that, and you can kind of like tweak the different settings to kind of like show you what that will kind of come out at. So I think we've we've adapted one that one of the community members, was it Sleety? I think.
Steve.
Yeah, Steely. So Steely did like a calculator. We've adapted that to put on the website as well. So we make that kind of like front and center. It's really important that we can communicate how much people can earn and what the different sliders are and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's going to be fantastic as well.
Yeah, great. So the name of this upgrade is Saturn 1. That
Mhm.
insinuates that there's a Saturn 2. Can you
Yeah.
just briefly tell us like what's happening with Saturn 2? Like what's happening there?
Yeah, so we've gone through like a prioritization discussion probably like a couple of months ago in terms of what we want to do next. So there is a Saturn 2 that is already kind of like signed off by the DAO. One thing that once we get Saturn 1 out the door, one thing that I want to do is kind of like change that up a little bit in the sense that with discussion from the DAO, there's a couple of priorities that are really important and that we want to kind of get in before some of the other stuff in Saturn 2. So we're going to change things around a little bit. And I think the key priorities, there are two key priorities that we want to try and get in, and that is mainly around having a minimum benchmark for node operators. Essentially, if they go below a certain kind of like balance, that they can be. This is all using the execution layer exits. So the idea is if they reach a certain threshold, then they can automatically be exited, so that they don't harm RE's performance. So that's a big thing. And then the other thing is an RE's redemption process. So as I said, currently we have this withdrawal liquidity, but I think a big thing for large holders is to have the withdrawal liquidity is actually been quite good recently, but with larger holders, one of the things that they require is a bit more certainty on the redemption side, and so that's something that we're prioritizing as well.
Amazing. Okay, and do you have an idea of when those things might be coming?
I do not at this stage. No, and I'm not even going to try.
Okay, excellent. But they have to go through governance. There's still governance stuff that has to happen there, and
Yeah,
you
and
guys kind
design.
of even you haven't started
Yeah.
on the actual coding or anything like that.
Yeah, no, we started workshopping
Oh, great.
to kind of like get an idea of essentially what information we don't have or the unknowns. So we've started workshopping that, particularly around the redemptions. The balance state proof actually seems to be quite simple, but as with all these things, it's never that simple. So that's not too bad. The redemptions is definitely a thing that needs some careful kind of like design work. So so once Saturn's out the door, we can breathe and then start kicking off those workshops again to make sure that we can design this redemption system and keep the momentum moving.
Excellent. About momentum moving, I hope that you guys are planning a momentum stop at some point and taking vacations. Like, do you have anything like that planned for yourself or any of the team members? Because you guys have been going at it nonstop for years, basically. So,
Yeah.
what breaks do you have lined up for yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to need something. There's a little bit of after we do the release. There's definitely a kind of like a hypercare period where we just kind of like make sure everything's working really well. But yeah, no, we will kind of like take some time out. I think that releasing something like this is extremely exciting. It does take its toll. So we are kind of very aware of that, and we look after each other basically.
Yeah. Lankas, I actually wanted to get your input on something. So there's been a lot of discussion at the Ethereum level of making changes to staking, with just changing Ethereum, basically. Like, there's always ideas about that going on. How much are you guys plugged into some of those discussions, and what kind of impacts do you think it's going to have on Rocket Pool in the future?
Yeah, we're definitely plugged into them in the sense that we've been talking to lots of different researchers, Alex Stokes to Vitalik to lots of different people. I think when we went to DevConnect in Buenos Aires, we had a good talk with a bunch of researchers as well. We're in a lot of groups that are kind of like talking about it. I mean, we kind of like try to give our feedback. With Saturn, we've been probably off radar more than we probably should be. But we we are definitely like we're keeping an eye on things as they move forward. I think it is funny. We've been in this game for quite a while, and there's always something that we need to. There's always something on the horizon that we need to deal with, and so it's not unusual for us. It's really kind of just evaluating each thing, and a lot of things, especially being in the Ethereum space for a long time, a lot of things come up and don't go anywhere. Do you know what I mean? So, but then a lot of things come up, get traction, and then do start going somewhere. So you have to really kind of like pay attention to which ones are kind of getting traction, which ones aren't. And so, but there's a lot of what I'm saying there is there's often a lot of noise, and you need to kind of like pay attention to the signal and make sure you're proactive with some of the researchers and that sort of thing. But we have some really great relationships with the researchers, and they're very responsive to us as well. So yeah, we'd keep an eye on everything that's going on.
That's awesome. And will people see you guys at ETH Denver this year or Mumbai? Like, what plans do you guys have?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Again, we've been mainly focusing on this part of the release. We won't be in Denver. Mav will be in Denver. I won't be, unfortunately, because I want to make sure that this is all good. So I won't be, unfortunately, I won't be in Denver, but Mav will be. In terms of Mumbai, we haven't decided yet. So we're kind of like figuring out what our next conference is. And so, yeah, we probably won't know that for probably another few weeks, probably. So I know that Mav is shortlisted as some of the conferences that we could potentially go to, and we're starting to work through those and get like pricing and that sort of stuff. But we haven't really decided on where yet.
Yeah, fantastic. Lang, it's been great chatting to you and getting a fantastic update of everything that's coming with this upgrade and around the team as well. Is there something that we missed talking about that you'd like the audience to pay attention to or keep in mind?
No, I mean, what I will say is we put a lot of time into this. The community have put a lot of time into Saturn. I think one of the proudest things is that we've kind of like managed to do this together. So that's definitely making this whole decentralized governance thing work. I think that's definitely a very proud thing, and I think it brings Rocket Pool really into the next phase of this cycle. We'll be very well set in terms once we get this kind of out to kind of like do very well in this space.
Fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. Langers, we're really excited to get Saturn 1 out the door and then Saturn 2 and always looking at the next thing.
What's next? Keep it rolling.
Yeah, but really, honestly, huge appreciation of all the work you guys have put into this and the many months of blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into it. So I'm really excited about Saturn 1 coming around, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the Rocket Pool community are also excited. So yeah, great job. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Beck. Thank you very much.